Alrighty. So, welcome everybody. Um, my name is Fallon. I am a registered dietitian, the owner of my business, The Sprouting Kitchen, where I do cooking classes. We started doing them outside on local farms pre-pandemic, which was a lot of fun. And now with the pandemic, we've kind of put everything in to be virtual, which has been a challenge, but also a great opportunity because people can cook with us from wherever they are. And also, I was the APS school garden coordinator back in 2016. Yeah. So when you guys asked me to join this, I was excited because I love seeing, all the amazing school gardens that are continuing to pop up and thrive around Albuquerque. So for our participants here, I would love to know what your involvement is with schools and school gardens, just so I can have an idea. How about you, Brian?
So I'm a district resource teacher for transition. And so we've been talking a lot about like work-based learning opportunities, either off campus or on campus, that are transferable to careers. And I think school gardens are a great opportunity to like learn new skills that are transferable to careers.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I mean, growing food, cooking food, anything related to food, there are so many different aspects that you can connect to. Um, so Mary or Cordell, if you guys can hear us, if you want to share your connection to school gardens or just APS in general, I would love to see. I saw Mary. You wrote in the chat. Got it. Mary's a school garden volunteer. Thank you. Awesome.
Hi, I volunteer in gardens and not necessarily in the APS gardens. I work more on the planning side, but I'm pretty involved in community gardens that aren't like incorporated into the schools, and also at UNM as well.
Awesome. Nice. And then I know Katari. Hey. So what I'm going to do in our session today is just show you 3 different recipes that are all using common produce that you would grow in a school garden, and they're all very like flexible recipes that you could make work with kind of whatever you have in your garden. So the recipes are in the link on the Whova. So if you guys need to look at those, let us know. But let's get started. We are going to make pesto. We're going to make a yogurt herb sauce and root veggie fritters. So those are the 3 recipes. Does everyone here like to cook? What give me a thumbs up. Your thumbs up is like you have awesome cooking skills. This is like, you cook, but maybe, you're just always working on it. Well, we're all always working on it, but like, okay, cool. Awesome. Oh, and Katari just put the link in the chat if anyone needs the recipes. So, yeah, so school gardens are so awesome. And one of the issues though is sometimes you have all this produce and it's a matter of like what to do with it, especially when it comes to schools, having the right equipment, the organization to actually cook with it can be a little challenging. So we'll talk about tips for that as well as we go along. All right, first things first, let's make some pesto. So pesto is like my #1 go-to recipe in the cooking classes I teach, mostly to adults now, but also when I was in schools, because it's super fun. Like, it takes a long time. So if you need to keep kids busy, pesto, you can like have a lot of kids making pesto. I would use one of these big heavy guys when I was in the school gardens. And it's a mortar and pestle. It's pretty big. You can see it's like as big as my hand, right? I do like using these, but I'm going to show you today how you can use a food processor or blender. So if you're making this at home, like, you know, making this by hand can take a long time, but with kids, they love to use this. And like I said, it's just a way to like kind of get everybody involved in the garden. When it comes to cooking and gardening both, and you have a lot of kids, you kind of have to give them all micro tasks, right? So it's really important to have a task for like everyone so people don't start causing trouble. So you can use a mortar and pestle. Oh, thank you for pinning my screen. Beautiful. Or you can use a food processor. So food processors are also just a really great tool to have when you're working in your kitchen. This is what mine looks like. It's just a typical kind of food processor. You can also use a blender. You do need like a decent kind of power blender, or else things can get a little bit stuck. But you can always add like a splash of water to get things moving too. So for a pesto, you're going to need about 2 cups of your green of choice. But we're going to start off with the garlic. And so you need 2 cloves of garlic and some salt. So we're going to start with that. Oh, and your nuts. So for the nuts here, you could use pine nuts, walnuts, pecans, almonds. When I did this in schools a lot, I would use sunflower seeds because some kids have nut allergies. But really you can use whatever nut you like here. Like I said, I'm using, sorry, I didn't say yet. I'm going to use pine nuts because I have them on hand. Pine nuts are really kind of traditional when it comes to pesto, but the issue with pine nuts, they're delicious and everyone loves them in New Mexico. But the issue is that they can be a little bit pricey, right? So, you know, if you're working with a budget, then using a nut that might be a little bit cheaper can be helpful, or substituting some like sunflower seeds in there. I'm going to grab my nuts from the fridge. And as we go along, please feel free to unmute yourself, ask questions, write them in the chat. I have the chat up so I can see it, but don't be shy. Ask me cooking, nutrition. Oh, I'm a dietitian, so I can answer nutrition questions. Gardening, I can try to answer, and I'm sure someone else here might have some more thoughts on that too. So into my blender, I'm going to put my 2 cloves of garlic, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and about 2 tablespoons of nuts, or really just like, you know, tablespoons, like a nice palmful of nuts. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball these. That's the beauty of pesto. You can kind of like, if you want it really creamy, really nutty, add more nuts. If you didn't want it as creamy, use less nuts. Katari, what type of nuts are you using?
I am using pecans.
Nice.
Sunflower seeds, but I thought I'd grab these.
Yeah, ooh, pecans are going to be tasty. They're so creamy. I've used pecans in pesto. I probably have made so many combinations of pesto because I just, like, if I have greens that I don't know what to do with, either I'll like saute them in garlic and oil, or I'll make pesto because it's just super tasty. So if you were using a mortar and pestle, now you want to crush the garlic with the nuts and the salt to make like a paste. So I'm going to do that in the food processor just to kind of get things started. So it might be a little loud, apologies. And voila, that looks great. And now let us get our greens measured. So I actually had a bunch of kale in my fridge that I was going to use for something that I never did, so I need to use this up. So I already had kale. The traditional green for pesto is basil, right? That's like kind of the classic pesto, and basil is super tasty in pesto. But you can really use any type of green that you have on hand. So I have like curly kale here, and I'm just kind of ripping it off the stem as I talk. We want about like 2 cups packed of whatever green you're going to use. So this kale is a little bit like fibrous. So you could blanch this in some hot water, which will just like kind of soften the greens. But I'm not too worried about it. I'm just going to kind of use it as it is. But if you wanted to kind of make a bit like of a more kind of like soft, luscious pesto, you could do that. You can use spinach. I just made a spinach pesto recently. That was good. You could obviously do a mix, you know, like if your school garden has a little bit of kale, a little bit of spinach, a little bit of arugula. Just know like arugula has a pretty spicy taste. So your pesto is going to have a pretty, you know, spicy taste if you add arugula. You can also even like blanch. So when I say blanch, that means to just submerge it in hot water for a minute or 2, just to kind of like cook it real quick and get it nice and bright and soft. So you could blanch broccoli and use that in your pesto, like a broccoli pesto. So truly endless possibilities when it comes to your pesto. All right, let's see, what are we working with? I would say this is about 2 cups. And like I mentioned, you can kind of like add the greens, and if you find that you need to add more, it's such a forgiving recipe that you can kind of add stuff, taste it, and then add more as needed. So we're going to now add our greens into the food processor. And this is where like a food processor is going to be better than a blender, because it'll break down something really kind of like fibrous like kale. Whereas a blender needs a lot of like liquid to get it going. So I really like the food processor for this. If you're doing this in a mortar and pestle, I recommend trying to chop up your greens before you add it into the mortar and pestle, or it's just going to like, not gonna be able to like get some traction with it. And also you can add like small bits at a time. That's really helpful.
Looks like Brian has his hand raised.
Yeah, so using kale, like I've never been a big fan of kale. So like, how does it, like using kale in the pesto, how does that, like, does it change the actual taste of the kale a little bit more with the nuts and all of that? I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, great question. And sorry, I didn't see your hand. So if I don't see it, just unmute yourself. Go ahead. Yeah, so kale, if we were to eat this kale right now as it is, right? Like raw, super crunchy like this, it's pretty fibrous. Like it's pretty like, you know, I don't like to eat raw kale. So this is when we're going to add, you know, the garlic, the lemon, the olive oil. What it does is it breaks down the kale and it makes it much more like tender and just gives it more flavor. Another really fun recipe you can do with kale, especially with schools, is kind of like what we just did, pulling it off the stem just into bite-sized pieces. Throw it in a bowl or a Ziploc bag, and then you want to add some acid, so like some lemon juice, some salt, and then you massage the acid and the salt into your kale. And what happens is it goes from this like really kind of like voluminous bowl of kale, and it starts to like wilt down. So it's almost like cooking it, but you're not actually cooking it, but it's like tenderizing the kale, and it makes it taste a lot better and the texture not be as like chewy. How's that sound? Any more questions on kale?
That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, kale's one of those, like, you know, it's become pretty popular, and it's one of the easier things to grow. So it is nice to have many options for what to do with it. And a lot of people, you know, maybe don't like the way they've had the taste because of the way they've had kale in the past. Okay, so next we are going to squeeze the juice of, you can start with half of a lemon. I like things on the more lemony side, so I'm going to do a whole lemon. And my kale is pretty, like I said, it's a little bit more fibrous, so I really want to break it down, and that lemon's going to help. Kateri, what kind of greens are you guys using?
Oh, this is Jamie, by the way. He's a garden teacher at Jimmy Carter and my homie. So, we've got beet greens because we figured we were going to use the beets later, and then dandelion greens.
Ooh, did you like forage those on your own, or?
Should have, but no, I got those really, the really, really big ones they sell at the co-op.
I've seen those.
They're big, and I'll show you. They're beautiful.
Some unchopped pieces. Here we go. Yeah, they're
gigantic. Like very gigantic.
You don't find those on the curb.
Ooh, cool. So dandelion and beet greens. Ooh, that's gonna be
Bitter.
funky too. Yeah, so same kind of thing with like the kale that I have. So dandelion greens, beet greens, those are gonna be, they're not as like tender and delicate as say like basil, right? So adding a little extra lemon juice, even adding, if you're gonna add like some Parmesan cheese, adding a little extra of that, like, just think it's not as like delicate as the basil, so you might need to add a bit more into it. Yeah, and you can try blanching it before if you want. It'll just make like a softer, silkier pesto, but kind of up to you. Awesome. All right, Brian, I just saw that you're heading out. Well, glad you got to stop by for a little bit, and I think the recording will be on YouTube, so you can always check it out later. Okie doke. So we've got the greens and lemon into our food processor. I'm gonna put, let me see, where is it? There we go. No, not yet. I'm trying to put this right over the hole, but I'm not very good at doing this. Okay, I have my food processor. I'm just gonna show you it after. So I'm blending up the greens now. And you might need to stop it a few times and just kind of let me get a spoon and just kind of mix the greens around. Because the greens at the bottom were getting a little more chopped up than at the top. And actually, I'm now going to add some Parmesan cheese. So I've got just a block of Parmesan cheese here, and this is going to add some really nice, obviously, cheesiness into our pesto, but also it adds saltiness, some creamy. And I'm just going to grate it straight into our bowl of our food processor. If you didn't want to add cheese, another great creamy addition you can add is cashews. I love to add cashews to this. And if you were using cashews, you just want to soak them in hot water for like boiling water for like 10 minutes. It just softens them. And it makes it a lot easier to kind of blend everything up. All right, so that's about maybe a half a cup of cheese. Again, you can add, as little or as much of that cheese as you want. If you want it pretty cheesy, just add a little bit more. I'm gonna blend that all up. Okay. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. So look at that. All of that kale like went into like nothing. Ooh, that looks good, you guys. Oh, you're using a mortar and pestle. Wow. Awesome. I love it. Honestly, I think that when you use a mortar and pestle, it comes out better. Like I've read that the motor just, I don't know, maybe it like heats up your ingredients. So you kind of lose out on some of that taste. So
Nice.
awesome. It's a good arm workout, huh? So look at that, like literally all of that kale kind of scrunched down to not much, which is pretty impressive. And now we just want to drizzle in some of our oil. So about 1/4 of a cup to 1/2 of a cup. Again, if you want it more thick, then less oil. If you want it on the kind of more oily side, more oil. So I'm just going to keep it on and just drizzle in some oil. And look at that. It is just like so green and beautiful. And so, so delicious. This is pesto. I think most commonly people put it on pasta. So that's really tasty. But honestly, you can put pesto on like anything. You can put it on like grilled veggies or sauteed veggies, roasted veggies, on a sandwich, on bread, on toast. You can mix it into like yogurt or mayonnaise for a dip. So endless possibilities on our pesto. So now you want to make sure that you try it. Yum. It's definitely got some nice like kind of zinginess to it. I think that's because I added a fair amount of lemon. I wanted it more on the lemony side. So if you wanted to like mellow down that kind of like acidy punch, if you will, you could add more cheese. But you know, I kind of want it to be a little bit more on the punchy side. So we are going to leave that, and I've got a jar that I'm going to put it in. So Katari and James, how's your, give us an update on your pesto. James, right?
Yeah, good enough, Jamie. But yeah, so it's tangy for the whole lemon. I think we got the texture down pretty good for doing it by hand. The flavor is really good. The acidic flavor is pronounced, but I think going to be really well balanced with the pasta in it. The greens, like the bitterness, just got taken down by all the other flavors happening with the parm and the pecans, and yeah, it's delicious.
Yeah, and so if you're using like Parmesan, you can always, I like to add some Parmesan like after I mix up the pesto with the pasta, like kind of as a little extra cheese on top. So, or you know, you add it into the pesto too.
Where is the camera that's, are you wearing one on your head? Is there an overhead camera?
You can actually, so do you see like my face, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This is like my phone.
Oh, okay, there it is. I couldn't tell. Okay, yeah, I see. It's got the arm that it's on the crane. Okay, yeah. I couldn't.
Yeah, so a little behind the scenes how it's done. Yeah, I just have a little clamp for my phone.
It's a great shot.
Right? Kind of gives you a insider view of what's going on. So once you know, you could either use your pesto immediately or put it in a jar. And if you actually pour a little bit of olive oil on top of your pesto, it'll seal that green color in for longer. So a little fun fact there.
Well, I guess we could just keep it.
so for the next recipe, we are going to make the root veggie fritters. And I'm going to cheat again and use my food processor, but you can also use a cheese grater. So if you're gonna do it by hand, and your veggies are already washed, you can just start grating on the big side of a cheese grater your veggies that you're going to use. I'm gonna wash my food processor. I'll be right back. Oh, Mary, can you freeze it? Yeah, you can definitely freeze pesto. You can freeze it in like a container all at once, or you could put it in like an ice cube tray and then freeze that and like pop out little cubes of pesto when you want it. All right, I'll be right back. And for Alicia, who just joined us, we are making a couple different recipes with kind of garden friendly produce, and we're making a root veggie fritter. Okie doke. So for the root veggie fritter, it's pretty simple. You just really need some, yeah, no problem. Are you cooking along with us or just hanging out? Looks like you're hanging.
Yeah, just watching. Thanks.
Awesome. Do you have a school garden at the school you're at?
No, but I'm a support person, so I support many schools with school gardens.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. So for our root veggie fritters, pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to grate up some root veggies. And what root veggies are they're just pretty much vegetables that grow under the ground. And you can use a mix. I got a mix here to use today. So I've got a parsnip, a couple carrots, and what else? I got a golden beet and a rutabaga, another beet. I wanted to do like a mix so I could show you kind of different vegetables you could use. And you want something that is hearty enough that you could grate it. So we're using different root veggies here, but you can also, for this, a popular recipe is using, you could like grate zucchini, and that works really well, like zucchini fritters. So you can really use kind of whatever you like here. What are you guys using, Katari and Jimmy?
Sorry for. We got beets and carrots.
Betabelli, zanahoria.
Beets, carrots. Did I miss something?
That's it.
Beets and carrots.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yum. So are you guys gonna grate them by hand?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. We've got a
Awesome.
very fine.
Yeah, very
This is
small.
probably too fine, but
It's gonna be great.
It'll work. That'll
I
definitely
left
work.
my house empty-handed. I could have brought the food processor and the like big grater, but I failed.
You'll make it work. You do want to grate it though. I'm like, could you chop it? You could chop it if you want to like chop it up really fine, like into like matchsticks, and then it really fine from there. So
We better get started, huh?
Okay.
do it. So if you are going to grate them though, what you want to do is get a bowl and grab like a dish towel, or I have like a really thin dish towel here, almost more of a, I forget the word for this, but it's a really thin, you can see it's like almost like see-through. You can also use a paper towel and pretty much just take your shredded vegetables once you shred them and put them in your paper towel and just like sprinkle a little bit of salt as you go. And what that does is it just helps to pull out some of the extra water, because we don't want our grated veggies to be too soggy. We want them to be on the kind of like drier side. They can still have some moisture to kind of help keep the little fritters together, but not too much or else it'll be soggy. So put some salt in there, and at the end we'll squeeze some of that water out. All right, so I'm just kind of chopping everything up so that it's ready to go in my food processor. And so I've got a parsnip. Parsnips are, all of these vegetables grow better in like kind of the cool season, right? So like spring, fall, even winter. So they all get a little bit sweeter when you cook them. And parsnips are not really great to eat raw. Same thing with rutabaga. But when you cook them, it brings out their nice kind of like natural sweetness. I had just had a rutabaga for the first time this year, and they are really tasty. They're kind of like similar to, I would say, like a parsnip, maybe more dense, but they've got a nice sweetness to them. And then I've got some golden beets here, multicolored carrots, and let's see, you want about like 2 cups of grated total. But with all these recipes, like I said, you can go, you know, more or less if you have it. And then on my food processor, I've got this cool kind of like chopper blade. And then I put this on top. And then you just kind of like feed the veggies in. Oh, here it is. Okay. I need my little topper. This is what you push it in with. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So I'm just gonna start, and it's pretty straightforward. You just kind of push everything through. We're gonna end up with many beautiful colors going on in here. That was kind of my vision when I bought all of these. Okay, so you can see food processors make things happen very quickly. Katari and Jimmy, yours will not go this fast. But I believe in you guys, you got it. So
we're gonna use the juicer and see if that wicks away some of the moisture, and see if we just use the pulp, if that doesn't lose too much flavor.
Oh, that could work. Yeah. You have a juicer, but not like a cheese grater?
Yeah.
I'll let her speak for herself.
That's funny. Hey, juicing is tasty. Okay, so once you have shredded everything, just grab your bowl and you can dump it right on in. Look at that. Look at all those beautiful colors going on there. And it smells very vegetable-y. It smells good. So yeah, I would say that's probably even closer to 3 cups, which is, that's okay. A little bit more. I'll show you how you can adjust the recipe as we go if you have more veggies than I said in the recipe. And this is like relatively on the drier side. I think sometimes, I mean, I bought all these veggies from the grocery store, so they're probably not as fresh. If you had just picked it, it's probably going to have a lot more moisture in it. Also, like red beets, I've done this with red beets before, and those are like tend to be really juicy. But let's see, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of salt on here, kind of work that in. Just a little sprinkle. And then kind of just pick up all the sides of your towel and kind of like squeeze it into a really tight ball. And then you're going to just kind of like squeeze and twist the towel, which will tighten the ball. And then just squeeze your veggies until some moisture comes out. Wow, these are on the drier side, so I might not even really need to do this. Probably any of the moisture I'm gonna get out is just gonna go into the towel. Okay, so my veggies are on the drier side, so not much moisture came out, but just depending on what you have. If you've ever made like potato latkes, like potato fritters, usually a lot of water comes out of that. So same process you would use for that. If you're making these with zucchini, definitely squeeze the water out. Zucchini is like mostly water. Okay, so once you've squeezed that water out, now you want to just add, oh, one note. So I have like the greens from my carrots, and a lot of times people don't make use of these, but you can definitely take some of your greens, and I like to kind of just, you know, chop the stem off. You don't got to go crazy over it, but let's see if there's just any kind of big stemmy pieces, you can remove those. Awesome. And then just give these a rough chop. Back and forth. And then these can go right on into your bowl here, which adds a beautiful kind of pop of green into.
Fallon, just wanted to report back, the byproduct of having juice from the juicer is actually a really nice benefit of our impromptu method, FYI.
So you guys are gonna get like fresh juice and fritters. I love it. Beautiful. Gotta always be resourceful. That's probably the best skill when it comes to cooking. Yes. All right, then next we're going to add our kind of binders here. So you need 1 egg, and you're going to need about a 1/2 cup of flour. So I'm just going to crack my egg right on in there. And then a 1/2 cup of flour. If somebody didn't eat eggs, you could make a kind of like, call them like a flax egg, where you take some ground flaxseed. It's like 1 tablespoon of flaxseed to 3 tablespoons of water. Let it kind of like gel up a bit, and you get a kind of consistency that'll help hold everything together. So just a fun little tip here. And also, if somebody didn't, you can use gluten-free flour too.
The top doesn't matter.
Oh, flour.
You know what I love is that flour and sand almost are the same word in Spanish. Harina and arena. Flour is harina, sand is arena. Yeah. Oh, I should mute myself.
I was gonna say, are you guys sharing? Because I like your lesson that we have here. Oops, so just give this a really kind of good stir. We want to incorporate that egg and flour so that everything is really nice and sticking together. I'm going to add just another pinch of salt here, just for a little extra flavor. And while we're at it, let's add a little bit of pepper. Why not? And then we'll give this one more really good toss. So if you were finding, like mine's kind of sticking together nicely, it's almost kind of a little bit hard to like mix everything, that's good. If it was like still falling apart, you could add, you know, another egg or just a little more flour and see if that helps. Okie dokie. So while we just get that finished up, I'm actually going to get my pan that we're going to cook the fritters in warmed up. So I've got a big cast iron pan here. Really, you could use whatever skillet that you have. And I'm going to heat mine up to a medium heat. And once it gets a little bit hotter, we'll add about 1 or 2 tablespoons of oil, depending on how big your pan is. All right, I'm gonna take my rings off for this because I don't want to get them all messy. But coming over back to our fritters. So I kind of like to just like make them and put them right into the oil. But pretty much what we're going to do is use your hands to kind of make the fritter. See how it's sticking together? It's not like some of the carrot or whatever veggie pieces are kind of falling off. That's okay. But generally you should be able to like move it between your hands without it falling apart. And once it hits the oil, it'll pretty much stick together. So that is looking pretty good. Let's see. All right. My pan heats up pretty quickly. So I'm gonna add my oil in. Again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this. You don't need a ton of oil, but you do need, you know, enough at the bottom that it'll actually kind of cook it and get them nice and crispy. We're not like deep frying. I would say it's more of a pan fry. And a good way to test if your water is hot enough, sorry, if your oil is hot enough, dip your fingers in some water and then like kind of flick the water onto the pan, and if it sizzles, you know it's hot. All right, so let's see. How big you make these? I like to do kind of starting in a ball about like, I don't know, a golf shaped ball, and then use your fingers to kind of form it into patty, flatten it out. But really make them as big or as small as you want. You do want to make sure that you flatten them out. If you keep them too big, then they'll just come out really kind of too thick. I like them a bit more on the thinner side because you get, I just think it has a better texture. But thick ones are also pretty tasty as well. It's kind of hard to mess these up, honestly. They're going to taste good no matter what. So I'm just kind of making my patties. Kind of using the palm of my hand and my fingers to kind of squish everything together. Any questions out there? Oh, I see you have 2 views. Oh, are you going to show us? Oh my God, look at that color. Those are beautiful. Because it's that red beet. Oh man, nothing like red beets. They just add such nice color. I love it.
Color that takes a while to get out of everything, but it's so worth it.
Oh yeah. Oh cool, so you guys put yours on a plate and now you're gonna cook them, it looks like. You didn't cook them already, right? Okay, yeah. So yeah, you can do that too, kind of like pre-shape them and then cook it. That works. All right, let's see if mine are ready to flip it all. So get your spatula ready. And you will see like some browning along the edges. I'm just gonna distribute that oil a little bit more evenly. This one looks like I can see some browning here around the sides. So I'm gonna flip it and we'll see. Nice. So you can see we're getting a little bit of browning. I probably could have let it go a tad longer. And I like to press it down after I flip it. But that is looking good.
So cool because I can actually smell it and then I'm looking at yours.
Right? You're like, wait, I get to actually eat this.
Yeah, it's so great. I like yours because they're like more stringy and I feel like we'll have a different texture than ours.
Yeah. Yeah, these look
Fry kind of texture,
Mm-hmm.
or like working okonomiyaki, just the cabbage pancake. But yeah, ours are going to be falafel deliciousness.
yeah, I love okonomiyaki. So good.
Yeah, I saw you had a class about that one once.
Yeah, so I did food court in Hawaii for a year, and I lived with a couple, and the man was Japanese, and he taught me all these like really awesome Japanese recipes. So my favorite that he taught me was probably okonomiyaki though, because it's like so easy but so good. Oh, so yummy. So Jimmy, do you guys have you grown food and cooked with it? Where is your school garden at these days?
Jamie just stepped out for a phone call, but I am definitely trying to grow food and cook it. Mostly I've done we did some beets last year, as well as all of the herbs. We had a lot of cilantro, and this year I'm trying to grow, I have potatoes in a bucket and
Oh, cool.
Spinach, beets, carrots. But yeah, what do you cook it? Have you cooked it with anything that you harvest from the garden at Jimmy Carter?
What, this or just cook anything?
Anything.
Oh yeah, we have a ton of carrots, tomatoes,
tomatoes.
Some carrots. Oh yeah, I've taken greens home. I'm trying to think if I've made like a fancy recipe involving everything that grew it on campus, but nothing's coming to mind off the top of my head, but just you wait.
Awesome. Cool. So many good possibilities.
How they coming?
I'm gonna probably flip it in too frequently.
Just get them all brown.
Yeah.
Oh, and I didn't mention the oil that I'm cooking in is like a grapeseed oil. I like to use, when it comes to like vegetable oils, I like grapeseed, avocado. They can do well with high heat oil. I I don't really like to use like an olive oil here because it doesn't have, it has a lower smoke point, so it'll burn quicker. And olive oil is just generally more expensive, so I like to use it for when I'm going to get the benefits out of it, which are a lot of the monounsaturated fats, and you'll actually kind of burn those off when you, if you cook it at like a high temperature like this. You can also use like coconut oil would be good too. So those are my oils of choice. Mary, did you have any questions on the recipe? Sounds like you are wanting to try it. All right. So this one is done. You can see, I'll turn that heat down a little bit, but we've got nice browning on both sides. I'm going to grab a plate to put these on. Once they come off, let's see. I'm gonna put this one back in the middle for a little bit. All right, I'm gonna let these two hang out just a tad longer. I'm gonna let these cool and then I'll show you what they look like on the middle. Okay, I have more batter. I'm gonna probably make a couple more batches of these, but I'm gonna show you how to make the yogurt sauce, which comes together pretty easily. So if you guys, Katari and Jimmy, if you guys are still making yours, go ahead, but I'm just gonna show you how to make the yogurt sauce. So for the yogurt sauce, you need some yogurt. You're going to need some herbs, salt, pepper, lemon juice, zest of a lemon, and a shallot, or you can use red onions or some garlic cloves. So first things first, the recipe that I added has you blend everything in a food processor, but we're just gonna actually chop everything up and have it more as like a textured yogurt sauce. If you wanted it really fine, then you would just chop it up. So first, let's chop up our shallot. I actually have some red onions. Awesome. Thanks, Mary, for joining. I've got some red onions here that I got actually from I'm part of a CSA where you get a share of veggies every week that started last week. So I didn't use these, so I'm gonna just cut the end off and then give these a good peel and chop these up. So yeah, you could use shallots. Shallots are really nice in this recipe because they're kind of like a mellow, sweeter onion, and like also have that nice kind of garlicky taste to them. You know, garlic, onion, shallots, scallions, everything is related. They're all part of the same kind of like allium vegetable family. So they all have a little bit of a similar taste too. So I've got my onion here and I'm just going to, some skin. Cut it nice and thin. And then let's see, once you get to this like greener part, you can just kind of keep cutting it until it gets, I like to go until you kind of get to where it splits. And then just give that a good rough chop. This is really nice because I think we think of yogurt as like Oftentimes it's seen like sweetened with strawberry and banana, but yogurt really makes a nice kind of like savory sauce. And onions just really work well here. Okay, so just add your onion right on in, or whatever you're using. You could also use like two or three cloves of garlic here too. And then let's chop up our herbs. Oh, I'm gonna grab an extra lemon. Okay, sorry about that, but I realized that I only had one lemon in my fridge. So now I'm going to show you something else you could use. I do have one lemon, but it's kind of old and it's not going to be that great. But if you were using a regular lemon, and if you wanted to get some of the zest, you can use what's called a microplane, or you could use just like a small grater, like Katari and Jimmy were using, and you can just kind of grate your lemon on here and get some of that zest, which just adds really, really nice flavor to your yogurt sauce, or really kind of anywhere you want to use it. I have here, these are preserved lemons. So they are lemons that are preserved in salt. They're pretty much just fermented lemons. And they are so tasty. And you actually can eat the whole thing. So you can see like, you let it ferment in this salty goodness for like a month, and look at how flexible it is. It softens it, and it's really salty though. So I'm just going to wash it off from the sink. Be right back. Okie doke. So I'm just going to chop this up, and I want to get kind of a nice kind of mince on our lemon here. I love the flavor of this, so I'm going to add probably a fair amount here. But so if you were using regular lemon, you would want to add about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So about like a half of a lemon or so, like a half of a lemon juice. Let's see, I'm gonna not go crazy. I'll add that much, and I'll save this for later. And then next, let's chop up our herbs. So I've got here some cilantro. And here's a really good tip. If you have herbs, if you buy them or grow them, you want to store them like you would flowers. So put them in a cup. I have them in a mug, and fill it with water, right? So like if you had a vase of flowers, and what this does, and then put a plastic bag on them and then put them in the fridge, it just preserves your herbs for so much longer. And like I've had herbs kept in the fridge that way for like longer than 2 weeks. So it's pretty cool tip there. So I'm just gonna I like to kind of pick out if any of the cilantro doesn't look, as nice. And then I kind of like to cut it in half. You can use the stems in other recipes. The stems of cilantro are quite edible and quite tasty. And for this, like sometimes you'll see people go through and they'll pick off all of the leaves of cilantro, or if you're using parsley or even like mint or dill, all of those soft, delicate herbs, you can eat the stem of, and the stem is full of flavor. you know, something like rosemary or thyme, that's like a woody herb, you know, that you don't want to eat the stem of. But cilantro, definitely can, and you're saving time because you don't have to go through and like pick off all those stems. And especially if you grew it in your garden, you probably, you know, you don't want to throw away any of that. So now I'm just going to come through and I'm just kind of like working my knife through the herbs. Really just kind of a rough chop here. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of, I have my non-dominant hand on top of the knife, and then I'm just kind of going kind of through it. And back and forth. Till you get it nice and fine. Okay, so it's pretty fine. I've got probably close to like a good cup of chopped cilantro here because we do want lots of herbs in there. And now the only thing left to add is our salt, pepper, and our yogurt. So I've got my yogurt here, and we're going to add about 1 cup. And I'm actually using some cashew yogurt here today. So, oh my God, it came out so fast. That was not supposed to happen. But about a cup. Let's see. There we go. A cup of yogurt, and just kind of mix that into your herbs and lemon juice. You could use Greek yogurt, regular yogurt. Just make sure that it's plain. You don't want it to be sweetened. That would be definitely kind of strange. And then just a pinch of salt and some fresh ground black pepper. You could add also a little bit of red pepper if you wanted a little bit of heat. That's always a nice touch. And then make sure you give it a taste. It's got really nice herbiness to it, obviously from all those herbs. The lemon adds some really good flavor, salt, pepper, just easy, delicious. You can put this, obviously we're gonna put it on top of our fritters, but you can put this on top of, even like you could use this as a salad dressing. Ooh, yum, that looks so good. A salad dressing, meats, beans, like literally this stuff is just good on everything. Okay, so I have my fritter here. I'm gonna try it with the yogurt sauce and see. So good. It's like crispy, but sweet from all those root veggies, tanginess of the yogurt on top. Yum. How are things going in your kitchen?
Good, I'm just about to taste it.
Let's see.
Super tasty.
How did your fritter come out?
That's good.
The beet flavor is so strong that it's the prominent flavor, but it's a really good texture. And the flavor's good too. I bet it'll combine really well.
Yeah, the yogurt's really good with it. Really fresh tasting and summery.
Yeah, and I feel like beet and yogurt, like beets are so earthy that yogurt tastes kind of balances that out a little bit.
Mhm.
Yum. Yum, yum. Awesome. Well, there you have it. That is how you make pesto, fritters, yogurt sauce. All very fun, adaptable garden recipes.
Thank you so much, Fallon. That's super awesome. I'm curious to know, what is your favorite recipe? Do you have one?
Like ever? Like that's like asking what's your favorite vegetable? I don't know.
Mhm.
Like what do I like to cook maybe?
Sure.
There
Or you could tell us about your upcoming classes if you want.
we go. That's a little more straightforward. I don't have I will start some more classes in May. I'm kind of taking April off because I'm starting a membership program where you can sign up to be, you pay like a monthly fee and then you get access to like a whole ton of recipes that are all focused on seasonal, like, you know, how to use parsnips or how to make fritters, all kind of things we've talked about today. They'll also be recorded cooking demos and live cooking classes like the one we're doing right now. So actually, I have a link. Let me just post it real quick. And anyone who is interested, you guys can check it out. Or you can get on my email list, which you'll find out when the membership is available, which will hopefully be done by mid to end of the month. So if you click on that link, that takes you to a couple more recipes. And if you sign up for that, then you'll get on my email list and you'll know when that membership will be out.
Awesome. I'm on the email list and I love it. So definitely recommend people get on there.
Yay. Yeah, and I love the emails you guys send out. I'm always like, ooh, what's happening?
Jamie, do you have any questions for
No, I think I'll just stay tuned. This was really good. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, have a good rest of your afternoon, and we will keep in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Fallon. And thanks for all you did for school gardens as well. I'm just like, a lot of where we are today is because of the work that you did, and Natalie and Mallory. So I'm just super grateful to you. And I'm really glad that you're, fulfilling your dream and doing cooking classes. So
Yeah, and anyone who, if you watch the recording, I'm always, love to connect, or recipes, cooking, nutrition. So feel free to reach out.
very cool. We'll put your link in the bottom of the video, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Later.